Welcome everybody. Today's webinar, Mindfulness in the Midst of a Pandemic. Just got a number of people joining us. Just like to advise you, this webinar will be recorded and will be made available next week. Welcome everybody. I'm sure everybody's had a busy day to start off with. This is probably the first breather you've had all day. So what's your intention for the next hour? Do you think you can shut down the phone, turn off the email, perhaps even shut the door, shut the kids out, or perhaps bring the kids in because there will be a guided meditation later. But for now, let the dog and the cat curl up at your feet and let the outside world go, because the next 60 minutes is going to be all about you. Perhaps use the chat function. Tell us where you're coming from today. Or perhaps tell us what you do to focus or calm yourself and how often you do it. Use the chat bar. Welcome, Anusha. Yes, tell us where you're from and tell us what you do to focus and calm yourself, how you look inwards. Mine's mindfulness and yoga now, taken up that. And how often do you do it? We'll shortly be starting. Let's get started. Before we start, though, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri Woi, Wurrung and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. They're the traditional custodians of the land on which I present from today, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today. And tina koko, tina koko, tina koko, katawa to our New Zealand colleagues. I love doing that welcome to country because our First Nations people have a real special relationship with the earth and all living things in it. And for me, by acknowledging the lands on which we dwell and the existence of our early inhabitants, the First Nations people, it makes me really stop and reflect and connect to this beautiful land that really nurtures and sustains life for us all. So with this lens, I'd like to introduce you all, over 100 registered attendees today, just to say that we see you and we welcome you. And I'm the GM for CIPS Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific Islands. So let's get a sense of where we're all at today. 3 things that I'd like you to do on the chat bar is firstly, tell us where you're coming from. I'm from the Bunurong country in Melbourne's west. And tell us what you do to focus and calm yourself, what you do to look inwards. It might be yoga, it might be mindfulness, it might be meditation. And how often do you do it? Is it daily or every second day? If you can just let us know in the chat function. I'm really super excited about this session. There's going to be time for learning, there's going to be time to meditate, and there is going to be time for questions at the end. So make sure that you use the Q&A function to ask those questions you've always wanted to ask. This webinar is brought to you by CIPS, but really it was the brainchild of Sophia Pereira, our marketing and events executive. Sophia was wanting to find a way to give back to our procurement and supply members and the wider community. And while membership, education and training might be what you know CIPS for, we're also dedicated to promoting best practice. And in my view, nothing speaks best practice than making sure you look after yourself to be the best and that you fill your cup. And over the last 2 years, you've all been under enormous pressure as the pandemic has thrown its full force at you. Its full force at all of us. And that's impacted both our professional and our personal lives. I know many people out there, you've been locked down. You've been worried about your physical and mental health. You've been worried about the health of those around you. Some of you have lost jobs, and some of you have held down jobs, but added pressure of homeschooling and extra responsibilities. Some of you live alone and have had minimal physical and social contact. So it's only natural that at these times we feel overwhelmed, stressed, and quite frankly, over it. So the skills we need in a crisis such as today's global pandemic are around empathy, creativity, and analytical decision-making, skills that can severely be undermined and compromised when we're really stressed. So studies show that practicing meditation has been shown to reduce anxiety and provide calm and focus. So today's guest, mindfulness coach and procurement professional Nick Rowan, is going to help us calm the farm. He's going to help us find moments of calm and focus in our daily life and take a moment to connect and breathe. So for the next 60 minutes, this session is about you. Let the outside world go and let me introduce you to Nick Rowan. Welcome, Nick. Nick is an accredited meditation mindfulness teacher who is passionate about making these practices accessible and easy and enjoyable. He's a Chief Mindfulness Officer at Mindfulness Solutions Australia and teaches at the Melbourne Meditation Centre. He believes that by teaching you how to use these great tools to find happy balance in your life, he hopes your day-to-day experience is calmer and ultimately better on an ongoing basis. Namaste, Nick. Before we leap into today's session, tell us, you're a procurement professional, group procurement manager at Austin Health. Tell us about your background and what brings you to coaching mindfulness.
Hi, Sharon. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me along. Yeah, quick background story is I've had a few procurement jobs, both on the consulting side and in the industry side. And when I worked in management consulting at Deloitte, I got pretty burnt out after a few years of doing that and needed something to get me back to balance. And I found my way through to mindfulness and meditation. After practicing myself for a year or two, I thought, surely I'm not the only one that gets overwhelmed and feels too stressed and needs some help. And that's what kind of led me down the teaching path. And yeah, for the last 5 or so years, I've been running sessions, at the workplaces I'm working, teaching outside as well, and running Mindfulness Solutions Australia, trying to teach other people these techniques to help them get back to balance and not go through the same kind of stress and experiences that I did without really knowing where to turn. So that's the reason I do it.
Thank you. Delighted to have you here. Thanks for joining us, Nick. And I'm going to disappear and let you do what you do best.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. All right. So I'm going to share some slides here, guys. Hopefully that's all coming through all right. I don't want to do death by PowerPoint. I know we all live in PowerPoint a lot of our days, but I do find this can be a helpful kind of aid while I'm talking through. So yesterday's session, mindfulness in the midst of a pandemic. And again, I'm Nick from Mindfulness Solutions Australia. Like I said in my intro there, my aim is to improve the mental well-being, particularly of workers in corporate environments, because that's where I'm from and I understand them, by providing mindfulness services. So hopefully you can get something out of today that can deepen your understanding of mindfulness and give you an idea of how you might be able to practice it. So what we're going to do in today's session is define what mindfulness actually is, talk about some of the benefits, talk through how the human brain works. I think it's often really good to understand what's going on at a deeper level, because that can really help in understanding why mindfulness can be beneficial and why we get stressed and stuff like that. We'll talk through some common myths about meditation, and then we'll actually do a meditation together that I'll guide you through. And we'll have some Q&A at the end. So please do get any questions ready that you've got. Hopefully I can answer any queries and give you some guidance. So what is mindfulness? But these days everyone's heard of it, and there's lots of different definitions out there. But the one I like to use is any technique that helps relax the body or calm the mind. I like this definition because it's really simple to understand and also really easy to test on yourself. There's a lot of definitions out there that use complex words or concepts, but the great thing about this is, after you try a meditation or a mindfulness technique, you can ask yourself, is my body a bit more relaxed? Is my mind a bit more calm? So really easy to kind of assess whether a technique you've tried might be good for you. So that's the definition that we go with. The other reason we use this definition is our body and minds are often thought of as two different things, but really they're very closely related. When we relax our body, our mind tends to follow. So a lot of mindfulness and meditation techniques purely focus on relaxing the body, and we find that the mind comes along for the journey. So any technique that helps relax the body and calm the mind, that's what we're talking about for mindfulness. And what are the benefits of mindfulness? Sharon alluded to some in the intro there, but really there's a really wide body of research going back 30 or so years now that demonstrate how good this stuff can be for you in reducing stress and anxiety, improving focus and productivity, improving sleep and energy levels, and lifting our mood and even increasing job satisfaction. So people can come to meditation for a whole lot of different reasons and get a whole lot of different benefits, but it's very scientifically well understood how good this stuff can be for you. So really no downsides to having a go and practicing it. I don't want to talk through all the detail here, but there's also a bunch of kind of, I guess, commercial studies or corporate studies that have been done as well across businesses who have rolled out mindfulness programs in their own workplaces about how much less stressed their staff are, how much more productive they can be, the return on investment that people get from mindfulness programs. So the point here is that this is not just, a small body of research coming from people who just, lock themselves in a mountain and meditate for 3 years straight. This is stuff that's very well understood in the corporate environment now as well. So really strong benefits for kind of anywhere that is practiced. But now I want to talk about the human brain and actually why we get stressed out, why we might get a bit anxious, particularly during a period like a pandemic when there's a lot more challenges than normal, and why that kind of leads to stress and how mindfulness can help. So I think it's useful to dive into the human brain. So the human brain is designed to really hold on to negative experiences and often forget about positive experiences. And the question I've got there on the slide is, if you reflect for yourself, if 20 good things happen in a day and 3 bad things happen in a day, when you get home at night or when you log off, whatever it is, what are the things that are probably going to be bouncing around in your mind still? And I think most people would reflect back, it's probably the 1 or 2 things that, went wrong rather than the 20 things that went really well. And that's developed for a really specific purpose, because historically, our brains had to remember things that were bad or dangerous to us versus remembering the good things. So we call this the negativity bias. We avoid sticks and don't need to worry about so much carrots, if you will. So if we saw a tiger one day and then went back to that location the next day and forgot where the tiger was, we would die. That's the end of us. So remembering where the bad thing is and holding on to it and focusing on it is really important. Whereas if we found some food one day and then forgot where the food is, we're going to be okay for a few days, and then we'll find food again. It's not so bad if we forget about the good things. So our brains are actually really wired to focus on the bad news and kind of forget about the good news, and then over focus on the bad things and think about where that could go. And you can imagine, the last 18 months, the amount of kind of difficult, challenging things going on, how that can lead to our brains kind of focusing more and more on these challenging or bad things, if you will. So I guess the really important thing here is like, it's not anyone's particular fault when you get stressed out or anxious or focus on the bad things. That's just how human biology is. And so what we want to do is, not blame ourselves for that, but see if there's a way we can, combat that or work more effectively with ourselves. So what happens then in the brain, if there's lots of challenging stuff going on and we're feeling a bit overwhelmed, what is actually happening? When our brain goes into a stress response, we're focusing on bad things, there's challenging things in our lives, the really clear and logical parts of our brain actually start to shut down in a very real way. So the three parts of the brain on the slide there, you can see the reptilian brain, that's the oldest part, that's the fight or flight part, just to keep us alive. The midbrain's about connecting and interacting with others, and the neocortex, the big part over the top, mostly at the front as well, that's where our really calm, clear, creative thinking comes in. And when we get stressed, and we know this from lots of CT scans and stuff like that, blood flow actually decreases to the neocortex in the front part of the brain and increases in the midbrain and the reptilian brain. So what's happening when we're focusing on difficult things or sorts of overwhelming circumstances, the clear logical part of our brain starts to shut down and the fight or flight part of the brain starts to turn on more and more. And everyone's probably experienced this feeling before in different ways, where you might be at your desk and there's just so much going on. You kind of go, oh, I can't think clearly. I just can't figure out what to focus on. I have to kind of get away from your desk. This is probably what's happening in your brain. You can't really activate that calm and logical thinking part because there's too much. And your brain sees it as a threat and just goes, all right, time to fight or flight. Just focus on the old part of the brain, start pumping you up with stress chemicals. So that's what's going on. Which I think is useful to understand, to figure out then what we might be able to do about it. So we know all of this from lots and lots of scientific research, and this is just an example of, a monk who's, an experienced meditator, getting his brain examined to understand, how does meditation change things? How does meditation or mindfulness help us combat these kind of things that are going on? And what they found is that the brain that we had before, where we're overthinking, we're overwhelmed, we're a bit stressed. When we practice meditation, and you don't have to focus on this at all, this is kind of the byproduct of focusing on meditation techniques, the old parts of our brain start to calm down again, the blood flow returns to the neocortex, and we get that calm, clear, focused thinking returning. And that, comes along with lower stress. It means we can kind of plan and think more about what we're doing and how to attack the tasks in front of us. And so that's where all those benefits we talked about before about being more productive, being more focused come from, is this calming down of the brain, calming down of the stress chemicals that our brain is putting out. So at a biological level, at a brain level, that's where the real benefit of mindfulness practice comes from. And the final element to consider here is that there's a famous kind of saying in this area, which is that neurons that fire together wire together. So in mindfulness, we actually practice calming ourselves down on an ongoing basis. So we feel a bit stressed, we do a mindfulness technique and it calms us down. And the more times you do that, you actually start in a very physical way to rewire the neurons in your brain to be more calm, to get calm faster, all those kind of things. So not only can a mindfulness technique help you calm down when you're feeling stressed, but when you practice it on an ongoing basis, it actually enables you to get calm quicker and to stay calmer on an ongoing basis. So that's where the kind of short and long-term benefits come into it. A technique today, if it's the first time you've practiced, hopefully you'll see some, short-term benefits, a change in how you're feeling. But the continual application and practice of mindfulness helps us get better at staying calmer longer. So when challenges come up, we don't get as stressed as before because our brains are used to being in a calm state. So really good short and longer term benefits practicing mindfulness on an ongoing basis. So that's what mindfulness is, some of the benefits, and then a little bit about the human brain and what happens to us in stress and how mindfulness can help. But before we jump into a technique, I also want to just chat through some of the rules of mindfulness, or what I like to talk about being the misconceptions. So people, their first experience of meditation or mindfulness or an idea is a photo like you see on the screen here. And they often have all these ideas about what meditation or mindfulness must be that they bring with them. And this can be, anything from this list here. So people often think you have to do it for, a certain amount of time. It has to be 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night. Or you must do it in a certain place or in a certain posture. You have to be sitting up straight, and if you get uncomfortable or move, you're doing it wrong. You have to stop your thoughts and empty your mind. You can't get distracted. You can't fall asleep. Or you have to achieve some, perfect sense of well-being, like you might think that woman on the screen is, achieving there. These are really common ideas or, rules, if you want, that people bring with them when they're first coming to mindfulness, because this is what they've seen and heard. But the reality is that, all of these rules are not true and they're unhelpful. So let's try and leave them behind. The reality is that mindfulness can be practiced anywhere, anytime, and any place. And it's hard to get that across, in a single seminar, but it becomes clear as do a bit more training. But you really can do it anywhere and any time. The really unhelpful thing about those rules, inverted commas, that we spoke about before, is they often just help people think they can't do it, right, and give up. So if you get distracted or you have too many thoughts, it's like, oh, I can't do this stuff, that's not for me. When in reality, the only time you can stop your mind thinking is like if you're no longer alive. Your mind's a thought generation machine. That's its job. It's continually just throwing things up that you can engage with. So as an example there, the job is not to completely empty your mind in mindfulness. It's often about just how can we create a more harmonious relationship with the thoughts that are coming up. We're not trying to run away from our thoughts. And if you get uncomfortable and need to move, then just move. You don't have to sit perfectly still. So all of those rules that you saw before, or any other ideas of what you might have about what has to be the perfect meditation, or what you have to do to get a good meditation, try and let all of those go. It's really just about turning up and seeing how the experience goes and seeing how you go. You don't have to worry about any of that other stuff. So hopefully that's a bit freeing, that if your mind's still busy or you feel like you need to move, you of course can. Not a problem. So what I'd like to do then is jump into a group mindfulness meditation. So I'll just guide you through this, and I'll stop sharing my screen so you can see me here. So this mindfulness meditation, it's really just going to be a 10 to 15 minutes meditation, introductory, one if you've never done it before. I'll guide you along. It should be fairly easy to follow. If there's people in the background or distractions around you, that's fine. If you've got a partner or a kid with you and they want to listen along and participate, that's perfectly fine as well. Don't feel you have to be in some quiet, serene environment. You can just do it wherever you are and in whatever environment you are right now. All right, to get started, just sit comfortably in your chair if you are in a chair, or feel free to lie down if that works for you. You don't need to adopt some perfect posture or anything like that. Just get comfortable. And when you're ready, just allowing the eyes to gently close, and do your best to follow my guidance. If you feel like you need to open your eyes at any time or you want to stop, that's perfectly fine. Don't feel like you have to force yourself along through the meditation. I'll just give you kind of 10 or 15 seconds to get settled and comfortable, and then we'll start. All right, so let's start today's meditation by bringing our focus to the breath. You might notice the breath in a few different places through the body. You might notice the belly expanding and contracting as you breathe. You might notice the chest rising and falling as you breathe. You might notice the shoulders rising and falling in time with the breath. And you don't need to control your breath in any way, just letting your body breathe naturally and tuning into wherever you feel the breath in the body. You might also be able to feel the breath coming in and out of the nostrils. And perhaps you can feel the air coming in the nostrils, swirling through the nasal passages, down into the body, and then back out. So for the next little bit, feel free to focus on whatever part of the breath, the belly, chest, shoulders, or nose, wherever the breath is feeling easiest for you today. And just focus on the sensation of the breath coming into and leaving the body. And now we're going to let the sense of the breath fade into the background and bring our focus to the body. And we're going to explore the sensations of the body, starting with our toes and all the way through to the top of the head, and I'll guide you through. So start by bringing your focus to your feet. Feel them placed on the floor. And all you're trying to do is notice the sensations that turn up for you as you focus down here. So you might be able to feel your socks around your toes, or the point where one toe touches the next. You might feel different points of pressure across the feet, perhaps different from the outside to the inside, or the heel to the ball. And you're not trying to notice any sensations in particular. You're just trying to see whatever sensations are turning up for you as you're focusing. And then start moving your focus gently up through your legs. So start by going past the ankles, through the calves, and just noticing any sensations that turn up as you slowly move your focus. And keep going up past the knees and through the thighs. Past the hips and coming to rest on the belly. And just seeing what sensations are turning up for you in the belly right now. You might notice that the belly is tighter on the in-breath and that it softens on the out-breath as it falls back towards the body. You might notice your clothes moving around your belly as you breathe, or the sensation of your clothing. And if your mind's getting distracted or pulled to other thoughts or emotions, that's perfectly fine. Do your best not to resist. It may simply be that you need to pay attention to that thought right now. But whenever you're ready, just gently return the focus back to the body. And then continuing to move up from the belly to the chest. And just seeing what sensations you can notice in the chest as you breathe. You might notice the rise and fall of the chest. You might even be able to notice the expansion and contraction of the ribs as you breathe. And then continuing to move the focus up to the shoulders. Just noticing again the shoulders rising and falling in time with the breath. And now see if you can notice if you're holding any tension or if there's any tightness in the shoulders. And just seeing if on each out breath you can let them relax or soften just a little bit. Almost as though on each out breath, the shoulders slide a little bit down and away from the body. Just using the out breath to soften and release any tension there. And then continuing to move up through the shoulders, through the neck, and into the jaw. And just seeing if you're holding any tension in the jaw. And if you can let it go completely slack in the mouth. Continuing to move the focus up the face. Coming to rest on the eyes. And just seeing if you can release any of the muscles around or behind the eyes, letting them rest gently in their sockets. And then bringing the focus up to the forehead. Just seeing if you're holding any tension or tightness in the forehead. And seeing if you can relax or soften any of the tension there. And now just expanding that sense of attention to include the entire body, your feet and legs, back and chest, hands and arms, your posture. Just getting a sense of the whole body sitting here, breathing. And then bringing your focus back to your sense of breath. And just taking 2 or 3 slightly deeper breaths. And then just taking a moment to check back in with yourself. See how you're feeling physically, how you're feeling mentally as we get towards the end of the exercise. And congratulate yourself on taking a bit of time out to pay attention to your own needs, to relax, get focused. And when you're ready, in your own time, opening your eyes. And just take a minute to get reoriented, come back to your day. And then I think we're going to jump into a bit of Q&A for any questions.
Very calm. Thank you, Nick. That's tremendous. I've got some questions. I'm really keen to understand we're all in front, many of us are working from home. We're all in front of the screen, you know, most of the day. You know, you really need to think about the gaps between meetings. Have you got any tactics of what to do to try and break up our day so we're just not going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting? Is there something that you do that can break up that and take our attention away from looking at the screen?
Yeah, I think it can be hard because it varies by person, I find. Very similar to, you know, forming new habits or reminding yourselves of how to do something. It really is person dependent. But the thing that works for me is intentionally blocking out periods of time that are just for me. So if I don't do that, I won't get out for my walk or I won't do whatever. So I actually block out, you know, 15 minutes or a half an hour meeting here in my work diary. So I know that at that time, I'm getting up to take a break from the computer, or I'm getting up to go for my walk, or I'm going to do my meditation, whatever it is. So I find actually blocking out the times is really useful. And similarly, I try and avoid meetings before, you know, 9:30 or after 4:30 if that's possible. So I don't kind of bookend my days with Zoom or Teams. I try to make sure I just, you know, kind of can complete my work and then stop my day at whatever time works for me. So I find that that effective as well. But booking out actual slots of time is the way I find really effective.
I love what meditation and mindfulness does with regards to breathing and focusing your attention on breathing. Is there anything during the day? Is there a little, you know, tactic or process that we can follow just for us to, even sitting at our desk, to go through and concentrate on the breathing?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the start, like the mind and body are really closely related. And what often happens for desk workers or knowledge workers is, you know, you kind of get a few hours into your day and without realizing it, like your shoulders are kind of up here and you've built all this tension in your body without even knowing. And what's happening with that physical tension that you're holding is it kind of drives mental tension, because your mind starts going, I'm tense, I know I must need to get ready for something. And so it kind of pumps out chemicals. I have a really simple, like, kind of 3 big sighs technique or 3 deep breaths technique, where you breathe in 1 deep breath, kind of bring the shoulders up, roll them back over, and then breathe slowly out as you bring the shoulders back down. You just do that 3 times. So in breath, big roll the shoulders, out breath. And I find by slotting that through the day a couple of times, it takes a lot of that tension out of the shoulders. It gives you that kind of breath check in, and it's only like a 30-second technique. And very quickly you can feel it kind of bringing you back down to balance, or just taking that edge off if it's kind of built up. So I find that a really useful technique. And again, one of my strong recommendations to people who want to remember that stuff is, just chucking a little reminder. So you might have it just at like 12:01 or something. So as you go and grab your lunch, that's what you're doing. You're kind of relaxing your shoulders, or maybe you put it in at 3 just for 5 minutes, just to give yourself that kind of breathing and physical relaxation break to take the edge off and kind of get you back down to that, you know, calm level.
Giovanni asks, do mindfulness exercises always need to be guided mindfulness exercises?
Absolutely not. So it's very hard to kind of teach people how to practice themselves in a short session like this. But my goal when I'm teaching is always to teach people like the fundamental understandings and what's going on under a meditation practice, so that you can easily go and learn and practice by yourself. You shouldn't be dependent on a teacher or an app or anything to kind of help you along. So absolutely, you can learn to guide, and, you know, at as an example, that technique that I went through there, that's really a combo of techniques I've just learnt over time, and I'm just kind of going through a bit of a process. So once you've heard the 5 or so core techniques enough times, you can understand it for yourself and guide yourself a bit better. But it's one of those things that just takes a bit of time to learn what's going on, to know how to do that and to have the confidence. And that's not to say that apps or teachers are bad in any way. They're fantastic. I still use apps when I feel like I need them, or I might do silent meditation to myself. So it really can be whatever you want, but absolutely, if that's your goal, you can learn some techniques and then guide yourself through, through your own meditation.
You mentioned apps. Is there any one in particular or a couple that you could recommend for us?
Yeah, the 2 I really like are Smiling Mind, which a lot of people have heard of. That's an Australian-based one. And they've really, I think their intro course is free, and then it might be paid membership after that. But I think that's a really good starting point, particularly if you're looking to, if you're brand new to it and you just want kind of a structured course for a week or 2 to kick off. The second app I recommend is called Insight Timer, and that's like the Spotify of meditation. So they have a really good intro course as well, which is fantastic. But then there is, thousands of teachers on there, myself included, and you can just type in like, I need help with work stress, and it'll show you a whole lot of results based on what are the most popular meditations that lots of people have listened to and lots of people have rated that are purely targeted at that. And so you can kind of find the exact meditations that work for you. And similarly, if you go, oh, I listened to this meditation by Nick and I really liked his style, I'm now going to follow him as a teacher, the same way you could with a music artist on Spotify. And then you can start listening to more of that person. So I think it's a really good discovery app for finding teachers that you like and styles that resonate with you, rather than just having to stick with kind of the one voice in the app that, someone's recommended to you. So Insight Timer is a fantastic app.
I can second that. Insight Timer, a nice Scottish guy puts me to sleep every night with a mindfulness.
There you go, yeah.
So just on that, I use mindfulness to help relax and then ultimately go to sleep. I do a 30-minute mindfulness. I'm asleep by 10 minutes. So is that the right thing? Is that a good result?
Yeah, that's absolutely a good result. Earlier I talked about some of the misconceptions that people bring, and falling asleep in a meditation is often seen as a bad thing. People have this idea that they, have to complete it or they've failed. But really, most of us, in modern society are somewhat sleep deprived. So if you set out to meditate, to relax or calm or whatever it is, and you fall asleep during that meditation, your body probably just needed sleep. So you've actually given yourself a gift by, relaxing yourself to the point where you can get that sleep, even if it's only a minute or 2. But if you use it to go to sleep and it takes 10 minutes rather than 30, then I'd say that's a great success. So it's a really good outcome, not a bad outcome at all.
Yeah, I don't want to reduce it just in case, but I'll stick to the 30 minutes. Rajesh asks a great question. What is the best strategy to stop mind wandering during meditation?
Really good question. Practice is the ultimate answer. So the mind wandering by itself is not inherently problematic. What the problem is when it pulls you away to something else that you don't want to be spending time with and you're not really aware of it. So what often happens is you'll be practicing meditation and suddenly you catch yourself and it feels like you've been gone forever, and you're thinking about what you said to your 3rd grade teacher on that day you felt silly at school, and you're like, how did I get here? Or you're suddenly involved in a work problem. So the issue is not that your mind takes you there, it's that you kind of catch yourself and you don't know how you got there. And by practicing meditation and mindfulness regularly, you start to become a lot more familiar with your thinking patterns, and you start to notice when your mind's going off. And what that gives you is the power of choice, because if your mind starts going, oh, this thing at work was happening today and I'm really stressed about it, you can go, all right, do I want to spend some time unpacking that because maybe that's important and I need to feel my way through it? Or do I want to come back to the breath and spend some more time there? So it's practice that gives you that conscious choice versus kind of getting pulled away. So it's not that the thoughts are problematic, it's just that choice component takes time to build up as you become more familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. What is the kind of the right amount of meditation to get benefit?
It's a really good question and a complex one. You'll hear a lot of people recommend, 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night. Most studies seem to think that if you're doing 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 4 or 5 times a week, that should get all the kind of benefits that we talk about for most people. So you should notice, short-term stress reductions about, as you're finishing the meditation and during it, but over time that should be enough to kind of compound the benefits, so you get the longer-term calm, longer-term benefits as well. It can vary person by person, so really my suggestion is just pick an idea and try it for a month and see how you go. So maybe it's, I'm going to do 10 minutes 4 nights a week for the next month and then see how I'm feeling after that. So it doesn't have to be this long commitment. It might just be, let's try this for a few weeks, and if it feels like that's the right amount, great. If you feel like you need a bit more, try a bit more. Kind of see how it works for you. And like you found, Sharon, maybe you find, oh, what I actually need is that 30 minutes a night before you go to bed. And once you kind of figure out the thing that you need, then that's perfect. You just need to do that. You don't need to do all the times and stuff that some, expert recommends. It's about finding what's useful for you and then going forward with that.
And I like the way that you said it can happen anytime, anywhere, anyhow. And we've had some great responses on the chat function. People enjoy cooking and dancing and doing yoga and all those different things that they can sort of think inwards and still the mind and a different focus to, I suppose, the stresses of everyday life as well. I often say when I run, I'm meditating because I've got nothing in here. I'm just thinking and I'm thinking of something different. So
yeah,
that is a form of meditation, is it not?
the underlying principles are almost identical. Like your mind can kind of be in 2 modes, which is like the thinking mode or the sensing mode. And if you put a list of all the things that naturally calm and relax us, they basically all draw us into this sensing mode without realizing it, moving our bodies, smelling and doing our cooking or noticing nature, whatever it is. It's all really kind of sense-based. Whereas a lot of the stress happens in the thinking stuff. So where meditation is moving us into our senses more, and all the stuff you talked about is naturally there. So the underlying principles of those activities and meditation are like very, very similar.
Terrific. Fantastic session today. Have you got anything you'd like to just leave us with in your final session? I think you might have some
I
slides.
might just throw a couple more slides back up just to kind of summarize the day and also put some details up. So I'll just throw that now, but thank you. So just the last couple of slides. So the key message I think from today is that, stress is normal. It's been compounded a lot the last 18 months and mindfulness can help. Recapping our definition, mindfulness is any technique that helps relax the body or calm the mind, has a really wide variety of proven benefits. Like we said, stress is natural, but it's been amplified a lot the last 18 months, and mindfulness can help us better cope with the stress, both in the short term and in the longer term. So that's what I really wanted to get across today, and also give you a chance to experience a meditation technique if you haven't before, or practice again if you practice on an ongoing basis. And then lastly is just, here's the details for MSA. So if you ever want to get in touch, that's a picture of the website and our address over on the left, and my email as well. So thanks everyone for attending today, and I'll throw back over to Sharon and Sophia.
Terrific. Thanks, Nick. We certainly have felt like we've hit the jackpot getting a procurement professional and mindfulness coach. So it was a terrific session today. Thank you so much. I feel already the benefit for just taking some time out over the last 15 minutes. So really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
And just in closing, just like to mention that we have a fantastic webinar coming up that I want you all to be a part of. It's a Women Fellows of the World webinar. So CIPS Fellows, we've got women from all over the world on this panel. The panel time is going to be a new time on the 5th of October. It'll actually be Eastern Standard Daylight Time, 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. And in New Zealand, it'll be 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. There's a reason we've done this. We want to accommodate our sisters from all over the world. And in this episode of the Women Leaders in Procurement and Supply webinar series, we'll be featuring outstanding global female procurement and supply leaders who are real game changers and are making their mark in this world of procurement and supply. So we've got 5 fellows, CIPS fellows, that will be joining us across 5 countries. That's UK, Kenya, UAE, Australia and New Zealand. So I'm really looking forward to having a really authentic conversation with these leaders as they impart their knowledge and their wisdom for this webinar. So please make sure you join us for that very special event. To keep posted on all of our webinars like today and the webinars coming up, make sure you visit CIPS Australia and New Zealand LinkedIn page. And if you found today's webinar really insightful, then can I please ask you just to take a few minutes to use to give us your feedback in the post-webinar survey, and then join us by providing, provide feedback so that we can improve on our webinars, and give us feedback on today so that we can also share that with Nick. So thank you, and until next time, please keep safe and take care. Namaste.